Okay, so welcome back for part 2. We'll do some embellishments to this frame now. We'll cinch up the stone a bit and, maybe I'll even throw in some bead balls or something at the end. We'll see. But before I continue, I want to show you something secret about this frame. These two bits in the back that I had us move inward to make a back seat, we can also reverse, very carefully, don't wreck your frame, and we can pop this stone in and out through the back. So we can add wires, we can even patina and polish out this frame without the stone in place if you need. And then at the very end, after it's all clean, polished up and ready, you can pop the stone back in and reseat it simply by motioning the wire back onto it. As we add wire, these spaces are going to get a lot tighter. So just keep that in mind that, right now it looks real easy because I don't have the additional wires added on yet. But once I start making these spaces a little tighter, then this becomes a little more difficult. But I wanted to point it out so you have it in mind while you're adding wires, okay? All right, so let's get the 12 inches of 20 gauge round. All right, I've got 20 gauge round, and I'm going to work with the stone in place to make sure that, as I add wires, I'm framing around this thing the way I want to and that I've got a proper hold on it. I'll just start with the 20 gauge and I'm just going to make a cat. So there's a little space on top here and I want to flip this wire over to the front. So I'm actually going to insert it from the back, just through that little space in the frame. I'm going to give myself about an inch, enough to tie on to the frame, maybe an inch and a half. And I'll just get real tight into that shoulder. It's a little squirrely. And I'm giving myself a couple of inches in case I, don't just want to tie it off. I might want to make an extra little curl. So I'm just going to get a nice loop going on around that shoulder of the frame, the main frame. Pinch it tight. You don't have to kill it. Oop, I just hit my camera. Sorry. Just take a fine plier and get a 360 on it. I'm holding the fragment back here. It's going to want to squirrel around a little bit. Okay. So I like to hold on to that fragment to give myself some resistance and tension. So give myself some leverage on this wire. I'm just going to make a little curl. I think I'm going to just follow this line down and get inside this frame with some wire against the side of this stone. So I made a little flip out. You want to make it a little larger so you have a cute little shoulder on there. Just going to make a little turnout right there. It wants to wobble around still, and that's okay. Just hold it in place. If you take this wire in the back and kind of go this way with it, you can hold on to it. And just carefully shape this add-on. I'm going to get it following the line of that hammered wire. I'm going to get it right up against my stone. But I think out here, take a long bend on it, bring it back through, going up a little bit, push a little, straighten out the leading wire, roll it in there, be careful of the edge of your stone. And when you get close, you can take your back hand and push a little, help it nuzzle up there. Just get a nice line, don't pull so hard that you take that nice curve out, or that you move that shoulder piece from where you want it. I'm going to tighten this up just slightly more now that my wire's on there. If you feel like you need to tighten that little circle up, you can get a round nose. Grab it from the inside and just roll it over. You can also use your fine pliers and pinch that area gently until you get the look that you want without wrecking the wire too much. And then since I'm in the back, just gonna take a nice elegant curve up this way to this side of the point. I want to stay clear of the point because, you know, I want to be able to have a reversible pendant. These are not tied together, so there's a little space in there. I can either snap into that space or, you know, I can make a little flipper here. Just going to hold that nicely. And I actually don't even need that curve if I don't want it. Just make a nice stretch over. And I think I'm going to flip over that little space. It'll help me catch. Plus, I'm not thrilled with my hammered bit right there. It's not bad, but push it. Get a wide plier. Give a small tap to give it some tension and hold. And that's a nice little line. And then I'll continue with the wire. This is still my back bit. I'll just keep it controlled right there. And I'll tighten that up and clean it up a little bit later. Still focused on this piece right here, the 20 gauge. So I'll just roll off my frame right there, take a nice long bend in it, and do the same. Gonna put some wire back into the frame, some whimsy, push through, just kind of roll it delicately with your fingers, straighten out your leading wire. You can use your finger back here and push a little and pull a little and get a nice curve on it. Give it some slack. And if you don't want it in the front, you can bury it off in the back or tie it into the frame right there or feed it back up here. So let's see what makes it look nice. So I think I'm going to go to the back with it. These intuitive frames are nice because you just take your time for a second and see where the wire wants to flow. Let me see, maybe I'll bring it up here and try to disguise that little shoulder a little bit with some more stuff. Just another little flip. Make sure that you don't have any slack in that back wire and along the back. I'll just turn the little bit into there and see if I like it. It's not bad, fills that space up a little bit. And I'll just, you know, follows that line nicely, so I'll just take it and tie it off back there. Let's see, I barely have enough. Let's see what I can do with it to tie it off. I'll just turn that little tip, get it to the front here, and I have just enough. Just going to kind of try to work the point of it down into that space. Without scuffing my wire up too much. So just like that, makes a nice little bit. Tap it down once you get that end hidden there. Don't tap it down so tight that you got tool marks you got to work with, but come up here and squeeze that little bit. Make it narrow. You know, this guy could probably take a deeper curve, be a little more elegant. If I don't like that, I'll snip it, right, and cut it, but right now I'm going to leave it right there. It's pretty all right. Doesn't interfere with anything. And I'll just squeeze it closed and kind of draw it to the back a little bit. Mine's a little bit long. I might take a plier and just give it a nice downward turn. It's all right. Anyway, kind of like it. All right, so that's how you add a wire. And you can continue to do that to your liking. You need to do that to the place where, you know, you get that thing cinched up. As I'm adding the wire, I'm trying to be mindful of these two wires just in case I need to pop the stone back out and how I come back over the back of it. If you're not concerned with popping the stone out, if your stone is, you know, patina hardy, or you're not going to patina at all, then don't worry, you know, about these wires or how you feed back through here. Just enjoy it. All right? You want to make sure that there's no bubbles in the back, and, you know, continue to add your wire. Before I go on though, I've got this little bit right here in the back. If I feel like I want to use it, I will. It's not much, you know, but I could swing it back up here to the top, right there, and, you know, do a little something over that shoulder with this little bit. So I've got a nice tight turn on it. I'm going to bring it to the front. Just do a little flip and cover that round frame right there. You get a wide plier and get on both ends of the wire, give a little squeeze, tighten it up so it lays in the shoulder there, but gives me just a little something. Might turn it out a little bit. And then here's the end of the wire, so you know, I can maybe curl it down, or if I don't want it, I'm going to make sure it doesn't move. Bend it to the back. Make sure my element up here stays that I want. All that just for that little bitty flipper. But then I'll come back here and I'll, you know, find a nice place to end this wire. Make sure that it's nice and tight down on the frame. I could tie them, or I could just take the end and curve it down into this space, which is what I'm going to do because my wire is pretty small. And I think I can get it down there pretty discreetly to lock in and not be seen. And that's pretty good. All right? All right, you guys. So let's go for another one. All right, once everything's added nicely, on jaw, and just go through, you know, don't kill things, but give a little pressure. Tap things down that you just added. Make sure that the pendant's nice and leveled out. Tap those curls. Make sure there's no bubbling in the back, that the wire's laid down nicely. I'm holding everything while I tap everything as well to make sure, because wires will shift. Okay? So this time, so that's adding one 12-inch piece. And this time we can also add pieces that are just, you know, a few inches that we pre-shape outside, and then we plan to put somewhere, right? So if I wanted to add another big wire, this is another bit of 16 gauge. I took it, I just shaped it with my fingers to the edge of the wire. I gave myself a little 1/2-inch flipper, knowing that I can tie on to the frame somewhere, and worst case, there's enough there that I can use a little wire and tie it onto the frame if I can't wrap that thing around the big frame somewhere. Okay, so I've given myself a bit there, and all I did was shaped it with my fingers, followed the curve of my pendant, and then I pulled it, you know, just completely off, hammered that bit, sanded it, and etc. I didn't really, but I hammered it. And then when I add it back on, before I do, I want to make sure that I have a plan, right? So I still need some pressure against the stone for it to stay in there. So if I bring it over the front and just follow this big line, I've got a nice look. I can end this by flipping it to the back. I can flip it to the back right there. I can dive it through the frame right there. And I might do that and dive it through the frame and catch the bottom of the stone and make sure that's really held down. So I'm going to hold it in place here as I want it. So I'm just going to mark the bit of the wire where I need it to bend. Gently come off my frame. So this is bending off the frame. I'm going to straighten this out because it's got to go through that. And I know it's got to go down, so I'm going to just make a 90-degree turn in it that way. I'll reposition my wire, but this time I got to get that little bit in there first. So I'll just get it in there. It's a nice fit to the bottom of my stone. And it fits right back in line where I wanted it there. And that's lovely. So that's where I'm going to snap it in. So I'll come back to the back now. I'm going to hold everything the way I want it, especially right here where it drops to the back. If I don't want to use that big piece, you know, I can just bend it and snip it away. But I have to, it's going this way, so I have to get it kind of counter. So you have to hold on to everything, right? Especially up here, then right here, and just take a nice deep bend in that wire back. If you don't hold on to this bit, it flies forward. So I held everything in place and just took the wire to bend back this way. I'm still holding everything in place, especially right here. Going to tighten up that bend and bring it here to the front without moving anything too much. It's tough wire and this little bit is short, so if you can't do it with your fingers, you can certainly do it with your pliers. But I'm just going to do a little curvy right there. Take my nylon jaw, just give some hardening pressure right there. Make sure you get the back bit of the wire. Don't kill it so much that you crush up your stone, but you see my stone's got really captured right there now. I have this bit out here that I can do some big design with, and I think I might just do that. We'll make it all complicated on you guys. It's a hammering and shaping and sanding exercise, so why not? I'm going to take that end. I'm not tied on up here, so I'm still controlling that bit, you know, back here with my finger. And I don't necessarily need to make a curl. I just want to make a nice, you know, shape, almost like an S back onto my frame. I'm going to pull it out and hammer it. So holding on right here, back here, because this bit, you see, if you don't hold on, it comes out. Take a plier and it'll help me just pull it out a little bit. Get it onto your block. Hammer that tip out. You know, do your sanding, shaping, and filing. When you're happy with the shape, put it back into place. And I love that. This is still the add-on wire. It's still just loose up top, but I'm focused on this little bit here. So I love where it's at. I'm going to go ahead and cinch it down with my nylon jaw since I just filed it all. Make sure I get on the back bit of the wire and the front shoulder of the wire. Give a little squeeze. Make sure it lays down there nicely, and that's lovely. All right, so now I'll deal with the top here. I have this little bit. I'm going to hold all this wire up front because I don't want it to move. I'm going to focus on making the front lovely. So I'll put a little turn on it, snuggle it into the shoulder right there so that it's not way out here. Just like that. Put a bend in that wire. There we go. I am going to give it a quick sand because I did leave a scuff. Okay, I'll tuck it in there. And then back here, I might have to tie that, you know. I'm not sure if I can make the bend into that spot. We'll see. So I'm holding it in the front to make sure that it doesn't move. So I like it just like that. I'm double checking to make sure I can still get chain comfortably through at least this top one, and I can. I just gave the end bit a little bit of a bend, and it's not long enough to do much, you know, width to secure it. And I don't want this happening, you know, it pulling out. So I'm going to do a bit of half round right there and tie it on. So I've got about 6 inches of half round right here. There's a place at the base of the bail, or the neck right here. I'm going to get it as low as I can, pass it through there, hold on to it, and I'm going to make a couple of wraps to tie that wire in place. I'm going to leave the half round up here in case I need it later. But you see, I just grabbed the add-on wire and wrapped it around behind the 2 bail wires. I'm going through the opening, not in front, because I wanted it to be nice bare wire there. Get a couple of good ones around all of them, and then I'll just go a couple of times around the single wire back here. It's tight up here, so you can get your plier to help you make these wraps nice and tight. And I'll go once more around this single wire and make sure that half round really stays there. Take it over, and I'm going to cut it off up top and tuck the end right inside. So I'll leave about 1 millimeter there. And I'll just roll it around, and same for this one. And there that is. Make sure that end is just pointing down and not seen and not felt. Beautiful. This is going to be gorgeous once it's all patinaed up. So this side is nice and secure. I probably need 1 more big wire on this side to make sure that stone never comes out. I still do have room to pop it in and out of the back if I want to. So I'll go ahead and shape out another thick wire for this side. Whoop. I'll use some 18 gauge. So I have 9 comfortable inches of 18. And I kind of like to start in the middle, right? You know, you can attach first and then try to whittle it down, but I kind of try to see the line that I want to follow. And since this one worked out so nicely, I might just try to repeat that going this way so I can get some coverage on the stone over here. You could use 16 gauge too, you know, if you want to, and just make another really thick wire, but 18 is pretty good, and I'll hammer it. So on the same, you know, idea, there's going to be a little space between these wires kind of right here. I could slip my 18 gauge in there, give myself, you know, 2 or 3 nice inches up here. And I just kind of start that way. Just going to make the curve so I have a reference. This wire, the rest of the length is coming out this way. So do I like that before I go any further, or did I want it to go a little further out? You have to make that decision right away too before you start getting too far. But I think I'm going to try it where it's at. Just use my fingers and curve this wire My plan is kind of to come down this way. And I like that, actually, coming from the inside. I don't mind that at all. I have a bit here, so I can flip it to the outside if I want any more, little bit of coverage. So that's why I give myself a hearty, 2 or 3 inches, maybe 3 inches, because then you have plenty of space, because there's plenty of wire. So, and it can still all move, so if I feel like, no, let me do that again, and make sure I got enough up here to actually do something with, I can just adjust myself and then reshape into the neck there. Just make gentle, long curvatures, not anything tight, so you can always undo it and shift it. So I just reshape this and bow it out a little bit and make sure it gets to the bottom of my stone. That's pretty good. I intend to hammer all that. And then right there is where I want to bend it and dive it into that opening below this little hammered spiral bit. So I'll just hold it in place, get my Sharpie marker. I'll just make a little line right there so I know where I want to dive it and bend it. Then I might also just make a little line right here to know that I need to hammer right here and not beyond that spot. Okay, so I'm going to slip it all out. Try not to change your curve, just try to get the wire back out of the frame. And now I'm going to lay it down on my bench. This is the side that's up, so I'll hammer the side that's not up. And that means, probably tracing your marks to the back so that you know where to hammer. All right, so I'll put the front down, get my hammer out, give a little tap. Layer out the bit that I want, sand it, pretend that I did that. I'm not going to sand anymore. I'm tired of it. I'm going to feed the front right back into my pendant, the top I mean, and get that curve aligned back where I want it. My little marks help me. Just put a little dent back into there. Get my hammered bit going where I want it. That's pretty good. And actually, let's go ahead and bend this. So pull it away from your frame. I'm inserted right there. Make a little bend right there to start it because it's hammered. And then pull way back and make a long, long bend. If you need to scooch this little spiral out of the way, just do that. Feed that end through there. You could also cut it. Try to stay right below the stone. You could cut it and make it shorter, but of course I might want that wire, so I did it long. And I'm just going to bring my hammered piece back down into place, work both sides, and shape it back in there. Okay? Hold it over the stone right there where you want it. I don't want it that far over the stone, just a little bit. And then take the back and either flip it to the side or to the top, or to the side and then to the top, but get that little turn on it so it stays. It's not going to stay till we tie the front, the other half, right? And put your little spiral back where it belongs. And then, the wire is hanging out up here. I have uncomfortable little opennesses over here, so I might just take it over the top. Make sure that that's not covering too much of the stone. Give pressure to the back. Flip it over to the front. And just follow the line and lay it down. Get your nylon jaw. Give a little squeeze for tension. Make sure you're on the back and front of the wire. Don't squeeze so hard that you crush everything out of shape. But there I go. So I've got the hammered bit where I want it. That's beautiful. And now I'm going to come up here and work the top bit. If you need to shape it to your neck, you can do that. Remember that you might want chain coming through that, so keep that in mind. And I'm just going to take it so that there's no interference. Flip it right there in front of my spiral. I'll put a nice wide plier on it. Nylon jaw is going to be too thick. Squeeze it closed so you have a little bit there. You can hold it in place, and then you can work this wire, you know, once again back into the frame if you want to, or to the back side if you're done on the front, you know, or just down the side. That might be more than I want on the front. So I'm going to unfurl it. Don't be afraid to do that. And I'll just take it to the back. I like that. So I'm going to keep that. Take this little neck bit and put a little outward curve on it to be cute. Just shape it with your fingers. Lay that down there. Make sure this little opening is nice and closed. Love that. So I think I'm going to keep that. Sorry, you guys. I'm sure you could hear Jolene in the background calling for me, so I had to go for a minute. All right, so we were right here. I love that. I'll say it for the third time. If you want to hammer that, obviously, pull it out and hammer your little curve. Why not? Just get all into it. Get that a little tap. Just some love taps. It's beautiful. Put it back into place. Woo! Sand and make it nice. And I'll show you at the end, you know, how to cover your stone and resand this whole thing for any additional marks that you might see. But loving that right now. So I'll go back here, take a look at everything and see if there's anything more I want to do. I have this wire up here. I could, you know, come down, add a little more. So I might just, for the sake of this, end it, this one in the back. I can easily end it by, you know, either bringing it around the frame right there and killing it, or bringing it back down this way. You know, landing it by this spot again in case you want to flip it back over. Right? We could flip it back over and bring it in some more. So I'll hold it. Got a little bit. I'm sure you guys are like, what? What does she do with these? Constantly using this wire. But I do. This is how I roll. So squeeze that. I got pressure in the back so nothing goes anywhere. And I'm just going to bring this little wire around to the front. Use my plier because I don't want it completely against there. I want a little bump out right there. So there that goes. And then I've got this little tiny bit. I can do another one of these on this side with this bit. So why not? Let's get it. Squeeze a little bit. Not too much that you don't pull everything out of line. And then let's go ahead and take our bend and shape the wire. So I'll get my bent nose. I'm going to hold this down here in the back because it's not tied on. Give real pressure right here so I don't lose that curve. Bend the tip back towards the pendant. Try to make it a little shapely like this guy over here. I think I'm going to take it out a little bit more and give it a little more bend right there and bring it in. Shape yours until you love it. Don't overwork it. I think that's good. Might put a little more curve into it right here. And that's good. So I'll pull this out, I'll hammer it. just like that. Okay, nothing is tied on yet, so get your grip down here. Just give a nice outward bend to it so that you can reach it. Not too much, just so you can reach it. And then hammer just the tip. Get it flared out. Sand and shape it. And then let's hold it right here and put it back into the frame. Make sure this line right here is nice and elegant. You can take your bent nose and go tips up. Give some love taps if you need to. Try to get a better shape on that wire if it goes out right there. And that's nice. I might have to put a little bit of a tie right there. So hold everything in place. Get my nylon jaw and give a nice firm squeeze. Remember, it's not tied on in the back, so it's a little floppy. We'll have to put a stitch there. While we're there, we'll take the stitch to the front maybe too and tie it a little bit together there. Okay, so I'll get a bit of half round. Let's see if I can do 4 inches here. I need to actually pass back to the front of the frame through this little opening here on the side. Yep, there's my 2 wires plus the back frame, so that's where I want to be. Pull this up tight. If your wire didn't twist on your way in, then hopefully the round side of the wire is facing the outside. If it's not, just put a twist on it. Or you can use 26 gauge, right? So go back through there. I'm just going to make 2 little ties right there. And I think what I'm going to do is come through this single one. Hold all your frame together so it doesn't shift out of balance. And I'll make a couple of wraps through this single one just for texture and also to make sure that it's just really cinched up. So just like that. Come back here and cut that wire away. Tuck that end. Okay, so that's a nice tie. That cinched all that stuff up right there. And it gave us a nice hammered look on this side. Okay, and you could certainly, do more with that if you want to, but there's that. 1 more wire to go, you guys. And I don't need to do much, so I might just take it off the frame. Hold it where I want it. Bend it to the back. And if that's enough for my pendant, then I'm going to just kill this wire back here somewhere. For me, I think this is going to be enough for my pendant. I don't want a whole lot more, so I'll cinch this wire tight up here Make sure my curve right here is nice and beautiful. And that's good. I think I'm just going to bend it into that armpit right there. I'm going to cut it and bend it up. You know, obviously there's length, so if you want to flip it up and over and do a little something more, go for it. Otherwise, this girl is going to call it a day with this one. So right here, I'm going to cut it with enough that I can make that corner bend. I'm going to hold my curve where I want it. Take a fine plier. I'm going to bend that in. I can see it up front. So you see that cut? We don't want to leave it like that. So you want to just turn the cut so that it comes back against itself or another wire. I'm going to make this a little bit shorter because I'm a little bit long. You also want to make sure that it lays real flat on that back frame and you don't give it a bump of a bubble there. So I trimmed it. I'm going to get a wide plier on it and bring it down a little bit more. Get to the front and back of that wire and squeeze it so that it ends right there. When I look to the front, I don't see it. If I do see it, I just need to nudge something until I don't see it. There we go. Woo! All right, you guys. Final sanding here. All right. So to get our final tool marks off, you can use scratch paper. I always have Post-it notes living near me, so I just take some Post-it notes, not the sticky side, but the other side. And if I needed to sand any of this frame wire, I'm just going to slip my Post-it notes in here, or my paper, and I'm going to get in between my stone and my wire that I want to sand. And then I can take my 2500 or 3000 and I just lightly go over any tool marks that I see or anything that I feel like I need a touch up on, right? And I can just move. You know, these are great for doing this because they're spongy, so you can really press them into the wire and it'll get into the little grooves. So I can sand that add-on wire. Hold your elements down as you sand. Make sure that you don't snag on this. And then just see if, you know, anything needs to be cinched down or not. And you can work up to your 3000 grit or however much you want to go. I'm going to get some of this on the side here. This wire that we hammered and added over here. Get my tool marks off of everything. Just putting my thumb right there. Help me stay off my stone. All right. Woo! Beautiful. Very clean wire. And you can go through and add bead balls if you want to, or not if you don't. I'm going to patina this up, and then I'm going to add my bead balls if I want any, but I might not add any at all. Just make sure that everything is laying down back here nicely. You know, if you need to take your nylon jaw, go through and give some nice controlled pressure squeezes to harden everything. Make sure you get on the front and back of the wire and hold on to everything as you're squeezing so that things don't move. And don't squeeze so hard that you're killing stuff. Just squeeze it enough. Okay? All right, you guys. And that should feel quite stable. Okay? This is beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and patina this now, and I'll come back in just a minute. Woo! I just went through patina and polish. I love how it's looking. I need to probably harden this frame up a little bit. So for me, I want to throw this in the tumbler. Some of you have tumblers. If you don't, just really jiggle through stuff. See if you might need a little tie on these long elements, something extra despite what we tied. So, you know, can that pull out ever? Do I need a little tie there? You know, can this shift? Do I need to harden it up there, etc.? So tap through your pendant. Make sure all your elements are going to stay. You know, are these things ever going to shift over here in the front, or are they hard enough that they're not going to move, right? If you don't want to patina and polish with your stone in place, if your stone's not hardy and you fear for it, remember in the back what I told you in the beginning, we can choose the less offensive side. This has coverage on it, so this is kind of open. I'm going to try to slip the stone out this way. So I'm going to push back. Be real careful you don't wreck your frame now that you've gone all this way. Push the stone out gently. And there it is. You can go through now and throw this whole thing in the tumbler or do additional sanding or whatever you want to do. I would be real hesitant to put this under the Dremel like this, because if your wheel gets caught, then it's going to, you know, chances are very high it'll ruin your frame. It'll just pull everything out. So if you need to hand sand, if you want to do anything more, or if you have a tumbler, this is the ideal time to throw this in the tumbler. Or if you hadn't patinaed yet, you know, now you go through patina and, you know, once again, you know, be real careful when you take the oxidation off that you're not snagging elements. But I'll throw this in the tumbler now, and then I'll be right back.